There are a large variety of drawing tools available to use in Fusion 360. We don't have time to cover them all in this video. It's up to you to figure out which ones that you like best. I will show you here the ones that I use the most. The drawing tools are all available in the sketch menu or drop-down menu that you can see here. Some of them actually have fly-up menus which you have to select the option in here rather than just clicking on the word rectangle as an example. The best way to understand how to use these drawing tools is to use them, to play around with them and to get the feel for how they might work for you and how you might like to use them. The three most common drawing tools that I use are the line tool, the rectangle tool, and the circle tool, particularly the center diameter circle is the one that I use most. You may find that you like to use the other tools a bit more. It comes down to your personal preference and what you're trying to draw. I'm going to demonstrate the use of these three particular tools right now, all in one sketch. I'm going to use the line tool first off by clicking on the line tool here. I'm going to select one of the planes to draw it on. I'm going to draw it on this particular plane here. The way you use the line tool is to move it around and click and let go and move the mouse around and click again. At certain points, if I click for example from here to here and then move back to here, you'll see that it locks to a center point. That is called snapping. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail later. You can also lock to this point here and snap to that point there as an example. If you basically bring it across and close this shape off, the line tool will stop working. The other way you can stop the line tool is by clicking over here to here and then using this tick button. I find the tick buttons a little bit annoying because sometimes you want to draw to that exact location. In this case, it's easiest just to tick the button, then press the line tool again and draw that little line there from there to there, and so on. The rectangle tool requires that you basically go up to the rectangle tool here and use the 2-point rectangle. You can also go from here and use the 2-point rectangle here. There are some other ones. I'm only going to show you how to use this particular one. The 2-point rectangle is rather simple. You're required to click on 2 points, 2 opposite corners, 1, 2, click, click, and that will draw it out. You do have the option of, as you draw it out, just clicking on one corner and then typing in the measurements. Say for example you want your rectangle to be exactly 20 millimeters high, and then you press the tab button to make it 40 millimeters long, and then you press enter to accept that size. The final one we're going to draw is the circle tool, and I'm going to show you the center diameter tool. So the center diameter circle means that if you click on a point and let it go and then move the mouse out, so I'm not holding down the mouse button, I'm just moving the mouse out, and then click again, it will draw a circle. If I click from here to say for example out to this line here, you'll see that it locks to that point there, and if you get that particular little one there, it'll touch perfectly at the edge. The other way of course we can do that is to click here and then type in, for example, I want my circle to be exactly 10 millimeters. And that's the most common way you drew it. You need to press enter twice to accept that, and that's going to put a little 10 on there which tells you that it's going to be set to 10 millimeters. As you've just seen, some drawing tools provide you with the opportunity to put measurements, otherwise known as dimensions, into Fusion 360 as you are drawing them. You saw that with a rectangle and a circle. Sometimes this is useful, sometimes it is not. However, it is not important to get this right the first time. You can change it at any time by putting the dimensions in later. In fact, dimensioning is a tool that we'll go through in more detail, but it is available here by clicking on, for example, the sketch dimension. This rectangle here I didn't define, so I can click here, let go. You'll see that it's got that highlighted, And as I move my mouse up, I'm not holding the mouse button down. I've just clicked once and let it go. I can move that up there, and I can click on there and type in 35 to make it exactly 35 millimeters. And this one here, I'm going to click on this side here, and this time I'm going to make it a huge difference. I'm going to make it 60 millimeters. And you can now see that that actually has drawn quite a large rectangle in the height. Snapping, as I've said before, is the locking of sketch elements, such as vertices, into place as you draw them. Usually your mouse cursor will lock. For example, it can lock to the grid. You can turn this on over here by going grids and snaps and choosing snap to grid, and now it will only ever lock to the grid. It won't lock or draw in any other location. You can also turn that off. You can other snap settings are available in other places, but it's important to know whether or not your element is going to snap, particularly when drawing lines. As a really good example, I might draw out from this point here. It's now going to snap. You can see that that square comes up on that point there. So as I click there, it's now fixed to that point. It is joined to that point. You'll also notice it's going to snap here as a right angle, so it's not just vertices that snap, but also things like the angle of the line. So it's now going to move back down here, and I'm going to make it snap to the midpoint. The midpoint one is very helpful, and you can see the little blue triangle that appears there, although it can be difficult to see these because lots of information pops up on the screen. I've now created a triangle that is exactly comes down into exactly the halfway point of that particular rectangle, which could be useful for the thing that I'm trying to draw. It is important to realize that this happens because sometimes you need it to happen and sometimes you don't. If you don't want it to happen, then it's a good idea, for example, to draw the line and draw it up here and come out here, and I don't want it to go to the midpoint, but I want it to be fairly close, to actually draw it somewhere else and then use a dimension, D for dimension, from this point here to this point here, and let's just say that needs to be 59, which is 29, which is 1 millimeter off the midpoint. And you can see that that's important when you need to do exact measurements to not lock things to the midpoint. As I said, the three most common tools that I use are the line tool, the rectangle tool, and the circle tool. You can see that I have the line tool and the 2-point rectangle tool available to me easily in my toolbar rather than having to go down here and find them. There is an option to do this, is to move any tool, including any tool out of any of the drop-down menus, up to the toolbar if you so desire. This works for any tool in the whole app, and we can do this by clicking into the menu, bringing it down, and I'm going to bring the center point circle out by choosing this and then pushing this button here and then choosing Pin to Toolbar. I now have the ability to draw that circle there through the toolbar. There are also shortcut keys, but most of those are already defined. You can define your own shortcut keys, but I tend to rely on putting what I need up in this section up here.